Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and today we're going to do something pretty fun. We are going to open up this new in-box eMachine from the year 2000. My friends at RePC found this in their warehouse completely unopened, and they thought it might be kind of fun for me to do an unboxing and test it out on my channel. Now, we have no idea if this thing actually works. Like I said, it was originally sold in 2000 and it's probably been sitting in that warehouse ever since. For a lot of people, this was their first computer because at the time, eMachines kind of dominated in the sub $600 PC computer market. This one right here retailed for $399. And I have a feeling it made a lot of concessions to get that price down so cheap, but I don't know. I've never actually used one of these. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, we're gonna plug it into a monitor, and we're gonna attempt to play some games on it. This should be pretty fun. Let's take a look. All right, unboxing the eMachines eTower 333C. Looking at the outside of the box, I can see a couple interesting things about this. The first being is that it doesn't include an Intel or AMD processor. Instead, it has a Cyrix processor. These were low-end CPUs that you would get if you were strapped for money, or in this case, in the case of eMachines, they wanted to save a little bit of money. Also, it says 3D graphics and audio. I'm not entirely sure what they've got on the inside here, but we're gonna find out. But either way, with the Cyrix processor and a who knows what type of graphics card, it could be kind of interesting trying to run specific games, but we're gonna try. It does say that it comes with a 3.2 gigabyte hard drive, which is not great, but it's not terrible. And it comes with 32 megabytes of RAM, which I think is actually probably pretty decent. It also says that we're gonna be rocking good old Windows 98. As you can see here, we got a eMachines branded keyboard. Looks like it's a full-size one too. Also has a number pad, which is nice. I thought this was kind of interesting. In here, we have a paper ad for Amazon.com. I mean, this is early Amazon here, which got me thinking, what would have happened had you taken that $400 and bought Amazon stock back in 2000 instead of buying this computer? That'd be pretty wild, right? How much do you think that would be worth today? Here is an eMachines branded mouse. Doesn't feel like it's anything special, but also I'm sure it'll probably work just fine. Even though this is a low-end PC, it still comes with Microsoft Works, which was very common at the time. Now this is for Windows 95, so it's probably not the latest and greatest version, but at least you got something to use. And then what is this little box here? It's very light, and I was like, oh, it's stereo speakers. So funny, you forget that these old computers needed external stereo speakers to hear anything. It wasn't built into the monitor. All right, I need some leverage to pull this out. And again, at this point in the unboxing, I was unsure if this was going to work or not. Like I said, it's been sitting in their warehouse for, I assume, years, maybe over 2 decades. I have no idea. But it looks like it's in good shape. There's no yellowing or any sort of weirdness like that. It actually just looks completely brand new. And like I said, I've never actually owned or used one of these before, so this is kind of interesting. I don't know exactly what to expect. One thing I thought that was kind of curious is this door down here, which exposes the USB port and also where you would plug in a joystick. I want to play games on this thing, so that's a good sign. Now let's go ahead and plug a old school monitor into it, and I have one from my office. It's a really nice one, but it's also super heavy. Walking around the computer here, it looks like your standard 90s, early 2000s PC. However, it is really nice to see a built-in floppy drive there, as well as a 24-speed CD-ROM. On the back, pretty standard stuff here where you plug in the keyboard and mouse. You have another USB port there, as well as a serial port, a printer port. There is your VGA monitor port. And that's where you plug in your speakers, your line in, as well as your mic. And then down below there, if you want to dial out, well, you got a modem. When I plugged everything in and powered it on for the first time, I was kind of concerned because, I'm getting a CMOS checksum bad error on boot up. I was like, Now, I'm not entirely sure what this is. However, I was able to get past it by rebooting a couple times and then just hitting F2 and using the defaults. My guess is that because this computer is so old, maybe there is a battery on the motherboard that holds the CMOS settings, and perhaps that battery is just dead. I would assume that's probably easy to fix. Maybe just swap out the battery by opening it up. But either way, as long as I leave it plugged in, it seems like it just goes into Windows just fine. But here we go, getting into Windows 98 on the eMachines. The first thing I was very curious about is finding out exactly what graphics card is in this machine, because as you guys know, that will determine what kind of games we can play on it. And it looks like it is an ATI Rage 2C. I think that is a 3D accelerated card, but I don't think it's necessarily a high-end one. At the time, you would probably prefer to have a 3DFX Voodoo card, but again, that would probably be way more expensive than what you could put into this type of machine, so I'm not entirely sure how it's going to perform, but we'll give it a shot. And there's the hard drive. As you can see, it is a 3.2 gigabyte hard drive formatted for FAT32, and it has most of its space available, so that's good. Admittedly, that's not a lot of space today. However, games were smaller back then. And you want to talk about a throwback? Check out all of these pre-installed online services here. You have AOL, AT&T, CompuServe, Prodigy, and the Microsoft Network. So many choices to get online. By the way, of which I would use none of these, because as long as I'm messing around with this computer, it's not going to be on the internet at all. I'm sure I would get a virus in like 3 seconds. All right, enough farting around. The computer is running, so let's go ahead and play some games. Now, my thinking is that I want to initially try some games that you would probably expect to be able to play if you had bought this back in 2000, right? My thinking is you buy this computer, it's brand new, and so you're going to be excited. You're going to go out and try to play some of the games that are sitting on store shelves. And so I'm going to start with Quake 2 because that would be a very popular game, and typically Quake 2 at the time did run on almost everything. Now I immediately noticed that the game is running, but it's running in software mode, and the resolution is 320 by 200. That's pretty low. It's funny though, because it kind of looks cool today and retro, right? I mean, it's kind of got this really cool retro look to it. And I would say it's mostly playable. Now, at the time though, you would be very disappointed that it's not running 3D accelerated. You do have some of those options in there, and I tried every single one of them. And I even tried to increase the resolution running in software mode, and it basically just turns it into a slideshow if it even runs at all. So Quake 2 does run in software mode at the lower resolution. Next up, let's go ahead and try Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Now, when I got this one installed, I went into the place where you can configure the graphics card, and there was no settings here. It basically just allowed you to choose the graphics card that is set up in Windows, and that's pretty much it. It's funny because at the main menu, I could tell, like it's running a little bit slow. It's funny because, yeah, if the main menu of a game is running slow, you're not probably gonna have a good experience, and you see me running the game here, it's a total slideshow. It's funny because I played this game so much, I'm actually not doing that bad. Even at this massively low frame rate, I thought that was pretty funny, but sadly there are no resolution settings, no display settings, no quality settings. It's just painful. The next one I wanted to try is Unreal, because again, if you bought a computer brand new, this would be a very reasonable thing to try. And when it starts up on the main menu here, it is running actually. It doesn't look too bad. We're not getting a great frame rate, and it's definitely using the software renderer. I tried messing with some of the settings and even including the resolution a little bit just to see if I could get it to look a little bit better. And no, Windows crash, wah wah. I'd be kind of curious if I could just pop in a 3DFX card in this machine I'd have to do some research on it. I don't know how many extra slots it has. I assume it probably has 1 or 2. That may go a long way, although you're always going to be hampered by that cheaper processor, basically the main CPU on this. Which got me thinking that maybe it would actually be a pretty decent MS-DOS machine. Here is Star Trek 25th Anniversary, and this is where I started to see that, oh, okay, this is where the machine could truly shine. You know, we're not trying to do fancy 3D graphics here. We're doing old school 2D adventure games, and it runs really well.
Not my engines.
It's just a simulation, Scott.
Captain Patterson says better luck next time, sir.
Lowering shields and disarming weapons.
Next up is King's Quest VII, which was a game that could potentially push a lot of computers at the time. The game has a lot of multimedia, like a full motion video in the beginning. It has a lot of animation as well as sound effects and music. And again, this machine runs this game very well. So I know I'm on the right track here. Next up is the original Diablo. And just like the previous game, is that, man, this runs like a dream. It's funny because when I fired this up, it's been a while since I played the original Diablo, and I love the music in this game so much. Which is probably a good time for me to mention the sponsor of this video, and that is CLZ Games app. You guys know that I've been using the CLZ Games app for several years now, paying for my own subscription for it. And that's because it's the one cataloging software that covers the entire breadth of everything that I collect for, from consoles to handhelds to, yes, even big box PC games. And it's super easy to add games to your collection. You just scan the barcode and it brings up all of the information, including how much it's worth. So you can see here with Diablo, well, a loose copy is like $5, but the complete in-box is only 16 bucks. I think it's because this game was so common. But if you have a new copy or one that's graded, well, yeah, obviously it's gonna be worth a lot more. So I wanna thank CLZ Games for sponsoring this video. And if you'd like to check out their app, you can find it in the Google and Apple app stores. I decided to press my luck a little bit and try out Need for Speed 2 SE. This, for a long time, was my favorite Need for Speed game, and there's several versions of it. This one right here does support 3D acceleration, although, as you can see, it's not going to take advantage of it on this particular computer. And this is running okay. I think this would be acceptable back in the day, probably not necessarily too much today, because the frame rate's a little bit low, but you can fix that by going into the settings for the graphics card and knock it down to medium, which I think is probably lowering the resolution a little bit here, but you definitely get a better frame rate. And I mentioned that floppy drive, and that's again where this is a very cool machine, because you can get all of those old school, basically, you know, 80s and early 90s games that came on floppy disk and use them on here, like Ultima Underworld. And as you can see here, the game just runs fine. So that's where I think this machine probably would sit today with someone who is looking for a old retro gaming PC, is if you want to play, you know, MS-DOS style games. It's not going to do 3D accelerated games, at least out of the box. Like I said, you'd probably want to try putting in another graphics card. But anyways, guys, that is an unboxing of an eMachines eTower 333C. This particular machine is going to go back to RePC in Tukwila. I'm not going to keep it, and I assume they probably aren't going to sell it, and to be quite honest, they may actually have more of these. I have no idea. But I want to thank them for letting me borrow it for this video. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.